Hello, welcome to Papa Nick's Music. I am, as always, your host, Papa Nick Lewis. And this week we are wrapping up our mini obsession with John Mellencamp. A couple of weeks ago I ranked his top 40 charting singles. Last week I just spent way too much time talking about, one of my favorite songs of his, Key West Intermezzo, I Saw You First. This week we're going to rank his albums, but we're not going to do a full album ranking. John Mellencamp burst on the scene with his first big hit. I mean, I Need a Lover was a hit, but Hurt So Good was his first, really big hit. And he kind of, I think, slipped off the scene a little bit with his last hit, Key West Intermezzo, I Saw You First. He was mostly in vogue. He was in his heyday, I should say, in the 80s and 90s. So I'm going to limit myself to those albums. Just albums released in the 80s and 90s. Okay, so I'm not going to do the whole catalog. I don't have the whole catalog, so. But we're going to rank those albums. We're going to have fun. It's going to be fun. Oh, you're going to love it. I don't know why I thought that was funny. Before we get into the ranking, we've got the subjectivity notice. Artistic appreciation is, by definition, we passionately believe here at Papa Nick's Music, a subjective endeavor. There's no such thing as objectively good or objectively bad music. There's only music that I like and music that I don't. And as long as we keep that in mind, this is a wonderful conversation. It's entertaining. It's informative. It's just fantastic. It only goes off the rails when somebody in the conversation insists on being right objectively. And there's no such thing as objective quality in music. So as long as we keep that in mind, this is all aces. I'm not trying to present this as if it is, written in stone. Any fool with half a brain cell will see it this way. No. Although there are many people who would say any fool with half a brain cell would certainly see things the way I see them. Beat you to it. This is also the first ranking that we've done in a while, so I want to talk about the ground rules for album rankings. When we rank albums here at Papa Nick's Music, we rank original studio albums that have as their primary purpose being a collection of songs. So, original. We don't do compilations, greatest hits, stuff like that. Which means we're not going to talk about Rough Harvest, which is a shame because, oh my God, is this a good album? If you are thinking about dipping your toes into the waters of John Mellencamp, you've heard a lot of these songs on the radio, and you're thinking, "Ooh, this might be something I could be interested in." Rather than going to a greatest hits package as a starter course, I would encourage Rough Harvest. He recorded this album. I'm shooting from the hip here. I don't know if this is actually true, but this to me sounds like a contractual obligation album. What? You're telling me I got to give you one more album? Okay, fine. He gets the guys together. They hang around the studio for a weekend and they bang it out. Right? It's John Mellencamp's version of Beach Boys' Party. Right? The difference is he's not just playing songs from his catalog, although that is what he's doing. He is playing, in many cases, different arrangements that I think improve upon the originals. There are some songs that when I think of the song, I don't think of the version I heard first on the album. I think of the Rough Harvest version. And here I'm thinking of songs like When Jesus Left Birmingham and Human Wheels. Two wonderful songs off of the album Human Wheels that I think are much better on Rough Harvest. So I strongly recommend Rough Harvest. But it is not an original album, so we are not going to include it. Studio albums. We don't do live albums. I could also get rid of this because it's largely, it's not live, but it's like recorded in one take kind of live. We only do albums. We don't do EPs, only LPs. These are all LPs. And then finally, it has to have as its primary purpose being a collection of songs. That's what I use to get rid of things like soundtracks, Christmas albums, tribute albums, stuff like that. We don't have any of those in here. I do have to say, though, I am going to arbitrarily invoke my right as editor and publisher here at Papa Nick's Music. We are excluding this album. Off the top of my head, I don't even remember the name of. This thing was released in 1983, so it was released in the time span that we're focusing on, but it was originally recorded back in the 70s. His original record label recorded it and didn't think enough of it to release it, but when for another label he started getting popular, they thought, "Ooh, we have we got it? Oh yeah, we've got this one here that we never released," and so they released it. I'll be honest, I've never listened to it. I don't care to listen to it. The stuff that I have listened to that John Mellencamp recorded in the 70s as Johnny Cougar is not much to my liking. So there's no reason for me to think that I'm going to like this thing either. So I've cut it out. I'm not including it. One of these days, if I get a wild hair, if I do a comprehensive ranking of all of his albums, then I'll include stuff like that. Okay? But for now, we're not going to do it. We're just focusing on the major releases, which means we've got 11 albums. We are almost close enough to be able to do this as a top 10, which would give me a reason to drink Schoferhofer while I do this. Because that's good beer. But it's not a top 10. It's a ranking. But I'm still going to drink my beer. Are we ready? Here we go. Coming in at number 11. Okay, so if you've been paying attention so far, if you watched my video where I ranked his top 40 charting singles, then it's going to be no surprise that coming in number 11th out of 11 is 1982's American Fool. Not a big fan of this album. If you've watched one of my ranking videos before, you will know that one of the first things I do when I'm thinking about ranking a batch of albums, so I go through and I listen to them all again with the ranking in mind, and as I'm listening, I assign letter grades. I spent the bulk of my adult life as a teacher. Grading is natural to me. A C is an average album. Typical. It's what you'd expect. It's not going to stand out, but it's not going to offend. It's just middle of the road, nondescript. B or D is favorable or unfavorable, out of the norm, out of the it's if it's a B, I recommend that album. If it's a D, I recommend you stay away from that album, right? A and F are the extremes. A, oh man, you got to have a copy of this. F is, oh, sweet Lord, stay away from this thing, right? And I would give this a good solid C. It's not a bad album. It's just not particularly great in my mind. When I'm thinking in terms of which songs on the album I like, there's really only one song I would point to as being worth salvaging off this. If I'm making my anthology of John Mellencamp songs, the only thing off of this that I'm going to pull is Hand to Hold On To. Everything else, I mean, Weakest Moments is okay, Close Enough is okay, but number 11, American Fool from 1982. Okay, number 10. That's good beer. Coming at number 10. 1980s, Nothing Matters and What If It Did. Now, I like this album. This is a B album. I've got 3 albums coming up here, this one and the next 2 that are all Bs. After that, we're in A territory. I like, from this album forward, I like all of these albums. I recommend all of these albums. I strongly recommend the back half. But so I like this album, don't get me wrong. It's not as strong as albums to come. The 2 radio hits off of this, Ain't Even Done With a Night and This Time, both wonderful songs. We've also got Don't Misunderstand Me, which is good. Cheap Shot, which I really like. That's John Mellencamp's sense of humor coming out. Overall, a good album, produced by Steve Cropper. Hey, we love Steve Cropper here at Pop and X Music, even though he didn't make my list of favorite guitarists. Coming in at number 9, we have from 1994, Dance Naked. I like the way this album sounds. It's a very raw, very sparse, naked sounding album, and I like that. I just think the songwriting is not as strong as the albums that came before and after. As far as the good songs that I would pluck off of this, Dance Naked, Brothers, and When Margaret Comes to Town are pretty much it. The rest, LUV is okay. Too Much to Think About is okay. I mean, they're okay songs. They're not bad. But Dance Naked, Brothers, and When Margaret Comes to Town are the only ones that stand out to me as, ooh, I really like those songs. So, number 9, Dance Naked from 1994. Number 8. I was just talking about this one from 1993. We've got Human Wheels. This album is trying to do a lot of stuff. This strikes me out of all of these albums as one of the more intentional, I'm trying to accomplish something albums, right? A lot of John Mellencamp's albums are, you know, I want to record some good music. I want to have a good time. You know, let's fire up some rock and roll, which I love, by the way. But every once in a while, he goes through a period where it's obvious he's trying to do something. He's trying to create something, and Human Wheels is one of those. Of the albums where it seems obvious to me that he's trying to accomplish something, this is the one that he is the least successful on. I would give this a B+. I mean, it's bordering on A. It's almost an A album. It's just not quite there yet. The songs that I particularly like, the hits, What If I Came Knockin' and Human Wheels, but also Beige to Beige and When Jesus Left Birmingham, which is one of my favorite songs of his. One of the reasons I have to admit why this is down here as far as it is, the versions of the songs that I like that are on here are also on Rough Harvest, and I like the Rough Harvest versions better. So this, as a result, has dropped in my esteem a little bit. I think if I had never heard Rough Harvest, this thing would be up much higher. It would definitely be in A territory. I think it'd be a low A, but it would be up in A territory. But as it is now, it's a high B. Number 8, Human Wheels from 1993. Number 7. Okay, from here on out, we're in A territory. I love all of these albums. I strongly recommend all of these albums. You cannot go wrong with any of these albums. Number 7. We've got the first John Mellencamp album. He started off as John Cougar, and so American Fool and Nothing Matters and What If It Did, those are both John Cougar albums. Then he started recording under the name John Cougar Mellencamp. When Whenever We Wanted came out in 1991, he dropped the Cougar. He's John Mellencamp from this point forward. And overall, this is a pretty sharp album. It is snappy. It is very definitely a rock album. The previous albums, the albums that he had released immediately previous to this album, man, that was hard to say, were featured more, I called it folky instrumentation when I was doing the singles video, fiddles and accordions and stuff like that. This is straight ahead, 3 guitars and a drum kit rock, and I like that. The songs to pluck off of this, the songs to shine a spotlight on, are the hits, Again Tonight and Get a Leg Up. Why I forgot Get a Leg Up, I will never know. It's a pretty memorable song. But in addition to that, we've got Love and Happiness, I Ain't Ever Satisfied, and Last Chance, which I really like. And I think part of the reason why I like Last Chance as much as I do is it has a very strong Chris Isaak vibe to it. It sounds like he's trying to do Chris Isaak, which would be backwards because he is much more popular than Chris Isaak was. But anyway, good album, Whenever We Wanted, 1991. Coming in at number 6. One thing I've noticed is before I spend time making videos about an artist, I do like to prowl around to see who else has done videos about these artists. What is the general consensus? And there's not that much out there about John Mellencamp. But what I have seen loudly detests 1996's Mr. Happy-Go-Lucky, and I don't get it because I love this album. I think this is a fantastic album. This is the first album that he recorded after his heart attack. Almost. And after that brush with death, he came back and did Mr. Happy-Go-Lucky. And I think this is a brilliant album. Not just because it's got Key West Intermezzo, I Saw You First on it, and I adore that song. It also has songs like Jerry, Just Another Day, This May Not Be the End of the World, but We Can See It From Here. I love that song. The Full Catastrophe. Oh, there's a lot of really good music on Mr. Happy-Go-Lucky. Unfortunately, when it's not really good, it's not very good at all. So there's some valleys to go with those peaks. But the peaks are very good. The peaks are very high. That's why I would give Mr. Happy-Go-Lucky A to A minus. So, very good album. Strongly recommended. Pardon me while I take an editing break. That's good beer. Okay, number 5. He said on his third attempt to do this. When I first started thinking about doing this video, I just did a quick mental shuffle, looking over the catalog, looking over the albums that I've got in the time frame. Which of these do I think are going to be the good ones? Which do roughly? And then, like I said earlier, I actually go through and I listen to them all and I grade them and then I sort them out and all of this sort of stuff. But in that first shooting from the hip shuffle of the albums, I would have put this one down toward the bottom simply because I never listened to it that much. I got it when it came out and I listened to it. I thought it was okay, but it didn't grab me and I filed it away. About 4 weeks ago, I started working on this video. I dragged it out and I listened to it. And I've been listening to it pretty steadily ever since because I'm here to tell you 1998's John Mellencamp is a pretty darn good album. His second self-titled album, but the only one that's John Mellencamp. His first self-titled album was John Cougar. This is a really good album. It's released in 1998, the first album that he recorded for Columbia Records, and it's got some fantastic songs on it. Your Life Is Now is good. Positively Crazy, I'm Not Running Anymore, Break Me Off Some. There is some good stuff on here. I very strongly recommend John Mellencamp. Oh, this is a good album. Surprisingly so. Okay. Now, I think for the John Mellencamp fans that are watching this, there's going to be some frustration that I put American Fool down as far as I did. There's some frustration that I put Mr. Happy-Go-Lucky up as high as I did. But I don't think I'm going to get a whole lot of pushback on what I've got left. My top 4, I think, are the 4 albums that most fans are going to pick as, material for the top 5. The order that I have them in might be different. Coming in at number 4, there was a time when I would have thought this would always be my favorite John Mellencamp album, that there would be nothing that is better than this one, that this is just, it was fantastic. When it first came out, it blew my socks off. Well, when I first got a copy of it, it blew my socks off. I wasn't listening to John Mellencamp when it first came out. But when I backtracked and found it and listened to it, I thought, this is fantastic. I loved The Lonesome Jubilee from 1987. Thought it was brilliant. Over time, I have come to realize that this album is... I had a video several weeks ago in which I coined, as far as I know, the label one-sider. Right? I've got certain albums that are one-siders. I like one side. I'm not too fond of the other side. That's The Lonesome Jubilee. Side 1 is perfect. Side 1, Paper and Fire, Down and Out in Paradise, Check It Out, The Real Life, Cherry Bomb. Bam, bam, bam. Oh, fantastic song after fantastic. It's just perfect. Perfect. Side 2, on the other hand, Hard Times for an Honest Man is the only one that I would pull out that I would say, okay, that would be worth including on an anthology. That would be worth including on a complete John Mellencamp kind of a collection. And some of these, Hot Dogs and Hamburgers, I get what he's going for lyrically, but oh man, doesn't quite get there. Empty Hands, Lighten Up Francis, right? I mean, there's a lot to like on this album, but there's also a pretty hefty valley on side 2. If I were ranking this by side 2, it would be way down. I'd probably put this below Dance Naked. I mean, it's going to be down there. But side 1, fantastic. The strength of side 1 is enough for this to get an A- and to be in my top 5 at number 4. 1987's The Lonesome Jubilee. Okay, this next album gets an A. The remaining 2 albums get A+. We are in very, very strongly recommend territory. I would argue that one of these 3 is a perfect album. Coming in at number 3, an album that I think a lot of people would consider it number 1, and that is 1985's Scarecrow. Don't get me wrong, I love this album. It can't be a perfect album, though. Perfect albums do not have skippers. And this album has a skipper. Grandma's Theme. Oh, Jesus. You better believe I skip over that thing every time. But the rest of this is fantastic songwriting. I am particularly fond, obviously, of the hits. Rain on the Scarecrow, Small Town, Lonely Old Night, ROCK in the USA. I mean, this thing was top 40 hit after top 40 hit after top 40 hit. But it also has Minutes to Memories, which is a wonderful song, and one of my all-time favorite songs that John Mellencamp did, Between a Laugh and a Tear. This is one of the few situations where the original is better than what he did on Rough Harvest. I love Between a Laugh and a Tear. I love Scarecrow. It's number 3 on my list. Good solid A. Okay, this next album, good solid A+. Both of these are A+. One of them I would argue is a perfect album. In fact, I would argue that the album I have at number 2, Big Daddy from 1989, is a perfect album. A perfect album is an album where I can't think of anything that could be done that would improve it. When I listen to it, I want to listen to it all in one setting. Yeah, I've got several criteria that I use to determine perfect albums, and this thing hits every one of them. I adore Big Daddy. Give it a good solid A+. There are no bad tracks on here. If I had to pick out tracks for particular attention, the ones I always pick out are Martha Say and Theo and Weird Henry, pop singer. But we also have Void in My Heart, Mansions in Heaven. Oh man, do I love Mansions in Heaven. Big Daddy of them all, almost a title track. This is just a wonderful album. I love Big Daddy. But my number 1 album, as imperfect as it is, 1983's God, is this thing good. It's not a perfect album. There is one skipper on this album. I don't care. I don't care how many Schoefferhofers I've had, and it's very low alcohol, so it would have to be a lot for it to impair my decision making. I don't care how late in the evening it is, how early in the day it is. I don't care how far away the CD player or turntable is. You bet your ass I'm skipping over Jackie O when it comes on, because Jesus Christ, that thing's irritating. But apart from that, God, is this a good album. We've got the hits. We've got Crumbling Down, Pink Houses, Authority Song. We've got Play Guitar. We've got Serious Business. Man, Warmer Place to Sleep. Golden Gates. Oh, man. This is just a fantastic album. Yep. It's not perfect, but it's the best album that he's got. This one is the perfect album, but this one is the best. Number 1, 1983's And that's how I would rank the albums that John Mellencamp released in the 80s and 90s. How would you rank them? Would you put American Fool up here toward the top instead of at the very bottom? I wouldn't be surprised. Would you put Mr. Happy-Go-Lucky way down at the bottom instead of nestled in the middle somewhere? Drop that comment down below. Let me know what you think. I always love hearing from you. If you enjoyed the video, thanks. I appreciate that. And I would appreciate it if you'd click that like button. And while you're clicking the like button, go ahead and click the subscription button. You might as well. It's free. And if you do subscribe, click the bell for notifications. The YouTube folks appreciate that, so I would appreciate it as well. And again, thanks for hanging out with me today. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope that the rest of your day is amusing. See you soon.